Well, I'm going to talk to you today a little bit about Charleston, South Carolina, my hometown. And I'm going to apologize for my multitasking, but you got to do what you got to do. Life doesn't stop just because you have homework. In any case, in Charleston, South Carolina, we were one of the first places that the Civil War began, Fort Sumter. And that is our one major claim to fame, but we were also known as the Holy City. And the Holy City means that we had probably more churches per square mile than any other place in the United States at that time. We still have a significant number of churches in our town. We have a Huguenot church, which is a French church. We also have Muslim churches, we have mosques, we have synagogues, we have Baptists, we have Presbyterian, we have Reformed, we have everybody. And we all manage somehow to get along. And that's a wonderful claim to fame that I am proud of our town very much for. And the unfortunate situation with the Mother Emanuel murders with Dylan Root were very sad. And we came together as a city, and it opened many doors to communication that we didn't have open before. And that was a very warm feeling to be part of in our city of Charleston. Right now, it's February, and it's kind of rainy, a little cool, a little hot. And one thing that people don't know, this is the time to come to Charleston, February. It's not bad for the heat, a little bit with the bugs, but there are not very many people, and lots of things are blooming that are gone by the time people think of spring break, let's go to Charleston, South Carolina. Pear trees are blooming with white blossoms. We have some Japanese maple that are bright purple. We have another tree that has purple leaves and pink leaves, and we have an interesting tree called we call it the Civil War tree because it has pink and yellow blossoms on it. I'm sorry, I can't quite remember the name of it right now, but it's representative of how some families had two sons, and one went for the north and one went for the south. It's one of the things we can't stop being a part of. We went through the Civil War. Our country went through the Civil War. It happened. It wasn't great. It wasn't good. Civil rights have tried to get rid of our history. But if our history didn't happen, we wouldn't be going through what we're going through now. And some of the things we're going through now are really good. It's a shame it took so long for them to happen. But I don't think that taking down statues and removing flags are going to make it better. I think it's going to make it worse because people are going to resent them being gone. And they don't need to be resented. Instead of taking down stuff, let's put up stuff. And that's my personal belief. And living in Charleston and seeing it around all the time. It's everywhere you look. It's in the flags, it's in the statues, it's in our history. The market was not a place where people sold slaves. There was a particular place called the slave market where the slaves were sold, and it is not in the market that is in the center of downtown. That is a misnomer that most people don't understand. That is not where slaves were sold. Fish, products like coffee, fruit, vegetables, those things were sold there. Oysters. There was an area called the fish market as well. Charleston is an interesting place to live, but I think probably a better place to visit. And I think that you appreciate the charm of it as a visitor much more so than as a resident. Living here, I'm plagued with traffic issues. Going downtown on a quiet Sunday, 20 minutes. Going downtown right now to pick up my child, could be 45. That's a long time to be in the car. So that part I think many cities have, but because Charleston is a peninsula city, we can't go anywhere. It's a peninsula, it's a peninsula, it's a peninsula. You can build all you want, it's not going to get any bigger. So struggling with the traffic is part of living in Charleston and traveling in Charleston. And staying on the peninsula is extremely expensive, but preferable if you have a chance to come to Charleston, spend the money, stay on the peninsula, walk, ride bicycles, or take a bike cab, or even take the transport. The city buses are pretty good, not too expensive. and try to see the sights, but see them with an open mind. As I said, the Civil War was here. We know what it was about, and it's part of who we are, and it's part of our charm, not part of something you should be ashamed of, something you should be proud of, that history happened here. Not all of history has been good for our country or any others. We are really blessed not to have been a war-torn country like many of them in Europe. We don't have buildings that were bombed the same way, and that's good. But we do have earthquakes, we do have weather events, we do have our own trials and tribulations, just like any city. But coming to Charleston in February is probably the best time you can come. The Visitor Center, which is on Meeting Street, has a wonderful website, the Charleston Visitor Center, and I suggest you go to it. It will give you many tips to travel through the city and places to stay. It also has a site for where people have their rent out rooms in their house. They also have short time rentals out on the beaches, which are really only about 30 minutes away. They're inexpensive. If you have a whole crowd of people come, staying in one beach house for a week is a lot cheaper than staying in a hotel. I would highly recommend you look up things for children. There are lots of things that people can do when they're here. We have a children's museum, which is the Low Country Children's Museum, which is very good. Our aquarium, I think, is better than Myrtle Beach's aquarium. Not quite as good as Atlanta, but we're pretty good. And those are nice places to go and visit that are showcase our seashore in a way that really makes you appreciate what we can and can't do, and what we should do to protect what we have. That's one of the things that I think people don't realize. Charleston is about preserving. We have one of the oldest museums in America. The original museum was downtown on Rutledge, about 3 blocks from where I grew up. It burned down in 1983, I believe. I remember standing on the sidewalk with a cardboard box on my head, watching it burn. It was sad and very exciting for a teenager. All the things that were in the museum had been moved to the new location, which is on Meeting Street right now. And it has a replica of the Hunley submarine, one of the first successful submarines of the Civil War. And it has a very detailed history of how it was made, how many people were in it, where it was found, because it was discovered. The actual original Hunley was discovered, and you can go to a site, I think it's hunley.com, and you may have tours and see the actual submarine, which is very interesting, especially for people who like military history. And it's out of town, but you can follow the directions pretty well. We have many plantations, but they're not what you expect. They don't emphasize slavery. They emphasize the fact that slavery occurred. This is where they lived. This is how they lived. This is how everyone lived at that time. It was in a relationship of cooperation. Yes, there was intimidation, and there's no way to make that right. But communication now helps understanding, and we have all throughout the month of February and March tours on the weekends, especially on these plantations, to emphasize how people lived. And it's very important to know how we lived in order to learn how to live now. I highly recommend coming to Charleston. Come to walk, come to ride. Don't drive a car. Use your feet and enjoy the charm of a small southern town with a lot of history and a lot of going for it. Enjoy the food, the fun. Spoleto is coming. That's an interesting history all its own. Look up Charleston, South Carolina, Spoleto.com. You won't be sorry you did. We have many events throughout the year. Charleston's weather is generally mild, but can get hot, can get rainy, but it's not going to be cold unless you have some freak accident of weather like we had this last January. Whenever you have a hurricane come close to the coast or actually make landfall, we're going to have snow or a very hard winter, and we did. But now we're all back to being warm and spring-like and everything's blooming, I suggest you come to Charleston. You won't be sorry.